Hey, Blaze fans and everybody else watching, thank you very much, firstly, just for tuning in to the first Blaze podcast. Hopefully the first of not just the summer, but going forwards. We'll see how this whole thing goes here with the current situation. So it's Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles from Blaze TV, joined by our very special guest for the first one, the pilot, whatever you want to call it, Blaze head coach Danny Stewart. Danny, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to do this with us. And you know what? I hope you don't mind me saying it's really, really good to see your face. It's the first face I've seen in quite some time that hasn't been on television.
I'm sure a lot of people don't share your same thoughts, but listen, you don't have to thank me for giving up my time. I got a lot of it right now. I'm getting a little bored here, a little stir-free.
I guess the first thing to talk about really is congratulations. The news came out earlier today that you've got the contract extension. You're going to be continuing as head coach, director of hockey at the Coventry Blaze for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
I know it was really good. It's something we've been talking about for a couple months, and obviously on the back of this season, a lot to think about, I think, from both sides. And we wanted to kind of build on this season and last. There's been a lot of talk of this season, but I really felt we made some huge strides last season as well. We had a very good team. Some unfortunate things went our way that I think that maybe held us back a little bit, but I still think we were a very entertaining product and a good hockey club. And, obviously it wasn't ideal that we had to change over most of the team, but there was a lot of things we implemented that stayed intact, and some things off the ice, and we did manage to bring some key guys back, and then this year's group was fantastic. So it'll be good to have that 2 years to kind of try and keep a core from this year, and try to build on what we did this season.
I mean, I think we're all going to. I think it's pretty obvious we're going to talk about that team quite a lot through the next however long this podcast lasts for. But I want to know more about what's going on in the Stewart household right now, because I know there's a lot going on. You've got a young family. It was the wife's birthday the other day. You said yourself you're going a little stir crazy. What are you doing to keep yourself busy, man?
Well, a lot of Peppa Pig. Isabel 4 she's saying dad about 500 times a day, asking me to watch YouTube. I got to tell her no 499 times out of 500. But you know what? The wife's been working from home, the past 3 weeks, so spent a lot of time with the kids, and it's been good in some ways, but a little bit challenging in others, as I'm sure any parent could tell you. But that's basically the brunt of it. Obviously, just talking to guys the first week or so to make sure they all got home safely and everything. And then, talking to guys about, the season and reflection and possible plans for next season. So just been busy with that, but mainly family stuff for now, and trying to stay home and contribute to keep saving lives. I guess that's the model going around right now. So, we're just being smart here. We're just going out when we need things and trying to keep the kids active is the main thing.
Oh, yeah. So, Stu, I mean, we've been WhatsApping a lot about the retro games that Craig's been kindly organising and putting out on there. I was a little bit younger. You're a few years older than me, but I hope you don't mind me saying. But I was.
I do, but you carry on.
Sorry, man, I couldn't help it.
There was so few penalties called, and I think that's probably one of the biggest changes from those times to now. And Danny, do you think is that one of the biggest changes in like hockey in general, hockey in the UK over the past sort of 10, 15 years?
Oh yeah, it's been a huge contributor to the speed of the game. I think there's less of that grappling, less of the hooks and the interference, you know what I mean, that really impedes players' plays. And what? I've seen a couple of comments of people commenting about Maury Hansen, and I'm going to defend Maury. I think in that game I watched it, and surprisingly, it's the first time I've ever watched that game since I played it. The one against the Newcastle Vipers, and I mean, if he had called everything that was a penalty, he would have been blowing his whistle every shift. Yeah. So it just shows you how much the game has changed, and I think due to that stuff being kind of taken out of the game, the holding and the interferences and the hooks on the hands, it has allowed the game to move more freely and obviously naturally it's faster. And it was crazy to see some of the things. I mean, the physicality and the grit and, the cross checks and the slashes, it was certainly a different game. And, if you go back even further to that, it was even worse. So, the game's changed certainly in a lot of ways.
Sorry, Stu, I was just going to say, because the first one that they streamed, Dan, was 0405. And you were in the old U-Haul back then, right? Before you came over. And they had some tough old boys in that league as well. Was that even worse than what we saw in that game?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe not necessarily. Yeah, no, 100% in terms of the amount of tough guys. And don't get me wrong, Newcastle had a heck of a tough team, but there were some teams in the United League that were just ridiculous. And obviously my final season after 0405 in 0506 with the Danbury Trashers, I mean, it was something else. It was quite the experience. But yeah, I know that league was and not just tough, very good too. It hit its peak. I believe East Coast League a few years before that had shrunk their veteran numbers, and a lot of them jumped ship over to the United League. And boy, it was a great league, but they were spending a little bit too much money, and a few teams folded. I think 5 teams might have folded after that year, and really the start of the demise of that league. And but yeah, I know it's crazy to watch that game. And Newcastle, they trapped it up quite a lot against us, and it'd be interesting to see the first leg of that series as well, because I want to say Morey let things go. In my memory, I thought that the whole weekend was like that, but then he called quite a bit on the second leg. But I'm almost positive in the first leg there was barely a penalty called, and it was really it favored Newcastle. I think that was why we had a tough time scoring.
Yeah, what was the first leg? 1-0, Stu, something like that.
1-0. So.
Yeah, I cut you off as well, Stu. What were you gonna say?
So I was going to say, you said you hadn't watched the game before. So was there anything that came up during the video that you didn't remember happening, or any sort of big memories that came flooding back from that game?
I think a couple of the specific goals. I remember we lost 1-0, and then I remember they stormed out. I remember talking to Tomo about it, and we were like, we thought maybe it was 2-0, but they came out 3-0. And I said to him, no, I think it was 3-0 in the second leg to make it 4-0 on aggregate. And the take goal I remembered, my goal I remembered. I don't remember. I just in my memory, I just remembered kind of the shot, and I shot through a screen and scored, but I didn't remember picking the puck up in our zone off a turnover and skating it the length of the ice. Tate's goal I had remembered, but the other ones not so much. I didn't really remember the other goals. I didn't really remember. I remembered Pisey scoring because I remembered his celebration. But other than that, there was a lot of things that I didn't remember. Like I mentioned earlier, I thought in my head, I thought that there wasn't many penalties called, but apparently there was. And like I said, I think Morey did a good job because he could have called one every shift.
Yeah, for sure. And what an incredible team. I can't remember who said it. I don't know if it was Tomo or I read it somewhere saying that was the best Coventry Blaze team of that era on paper. And considering that they played the Grand Slam game, I don't know whether you watched that one as well, Danny, the week before, with Belak and McNamara, a couple of other guys. Now that's a big accolade, man. That's a big accolade.
Yeah, no, I mean we had a really good team, and it's good to hear too, because I think the following season we actually had quite a few more points in the regular season when we won the championship, if I'm right. But you know what? That team was really good. We were really banged up towards the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season. I remember Klutze sat quite a few games down the stretch. Certainly after we had won it, I think I sat the last 4 or 5 because of my shoulder issues. Klutz, I can't remember what the injury was, but I just remember being on the bench with him. And, obviously winning that Challenge Cup and then the league. Or was it the other way around?
I think we had the league first, and then then it was the Challenge Cup up in Sheffield.
Yeah.
I think we'd just got the championship by that point.
Yeah, and we were pretty banged up going into playoffs, and we used to always joke and say that the team that won the league, it was tougher for them to win the playoffs because they were just holding on and scraping for every point down the stretch, and everything was a playoff game where, teams that were remember Cardiff used to kind of, find their place, 6th or 7th place, and then make a run in the playoffs because they were rearing to go. So, but if you guys remember, TK's father fell ill. Unfortunately, he had to fly home, and that really disrupted his preparation. And by no means was it his fault that we didn't win that game in the semifinal, which I don't have much recollection of anyway. But I think it was a 3-2 score. But whether that disrupted things or not, I don't know. I think probably the biggest thing was that we were pretty banged up, and I think we were completely spent by that point of the year. And it was unfortunate because I think we were certainly a Grand Slam type team that season.
Yeah, it's almost topical because the first thing that came to my mind was what ifs, and moving into talking about the season just gone. There's so many what ifs now. Danny, I know you're so pragmatic, but me, Stu, I think I talk for you here, buddy. Correct me if I'm wrong. We were so high on this team that we had this year, and the what ifs are right now when we're recording this. It's not going out live. Sorry, folks. Maybe next time. I swear too much, so Craig needs to edit. We might be on the verge of your first piece of silverware coach in the club, and that it was that good a team. I mean, that was an incredible run that we went on. You can't deny that.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think the only hiccup really during the season was that I think it was a 5-game stretch there in was it late November, early December, I think, and 5 games in the league, and then we lost that play-in game in the Challenge Cup, and it's the only real negative of the season I could find. And then it was one of those. I'm not gonna lie. I think looking back, I think our players, maybe a little bit taken back by the crowd. And listen, we had a lot of things working against us that night. We had was it the Christmas switch? Christmas lights.
Oh yeah.
I think there was there a Cub City game that night too?
Yeah. And the game and the Blaze game was on the television. There was so many.
Yeah, and I think when the guys skated out to, I mean, I can't remember exactly what it was, 600-700 people. I think it was. I mean, I almost feel now we would have been better off playing in Manchester almost. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think it kind of put guys back a little bit, and we just never got going. Obviously, adding Motter was a key element, but we had won 3 in a row going, before that point, and we had started playing some good hockey, which I felt was a good time to make the move. Well, rather than, on the back of a 5-game slide, and you were a little bit fragile, and then a new goalie has to come in, and obviously we experienced that the year before, and by no means did I ever, I've made a couple comments about our goalie situation the season before, and that wasn't meant to say that our goalies weren't good enough. I think they were all put in difficult situations, starting from, obviously Nasty had the injury before the season started that ruled him out, and then we had to sign Wickman right away, and he had played pretty good early on and broke his hand, and then I could go on and on, but every guy came under difficult circumstances, got an injury as well, and that really contributed to things. It was crazy, but I think by bringing Motter in when we were starting to turn a corner, added to it. But I thought we had played well. We just maybe as a group found a way to win hockey games. Sometimes when you got a lot of new guys, it takes time to learn how to win. And once we did, boy, it was a fun ride. And I know, Ed, you always say I am pragmatic, but I was really excited for that last stretch. I really was. I was looking at the schedule, and by no means any game would have been easy. I know even Fife, they give us tough games all year. They've had our number in previous seasons, and we had found a way to win that, and just knocking on Cardiff's door. They had a tricky weekend that weekend, with Guildford at home. Guildford was playing really good, picking up their game, and then they had to make the trek all the way up to Dundee that weekend on the Sunday. And I felt that was a difficult weekend for Cardiff, and it would have been interesting to see where things were after the weekend. And obviously we were due to go to Cardiff on the Wednesday. So we'll be staying here what if, but there's nothing we can do about it now, I guess. Yeah.
In general, in kind of over the whole season, I was watching a podcast earlier, and a guy called Gary Clark Jr. is a guitar player from Texas, and he was talking about playing in a band. And I think playing in a hockey team is very similar to this. He was talking about it being like a radio, and like one of the old radios where you have to tune it into the station. And sometimes if you're a little bit left, doesn't quite work out. You don't quite get the clear sound. Sometimes with the right, again, same thing. You have to really have everyone tuned in, dialed into that middle. And it seemed like kind of around New Year, kind of just before New Year, December, we hit that sweet spot, didn't we? Everybody seemed to buy in, figure out their role. Is that kind of how it was? Is that analogy more or less right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many elements that go into creating a run like that. And I think, you can talk, individual performances, you can talk structure, you can talk all of those things. But for me, the biggest thing for success, and I really felt, we talked about the 06-07 season. This team really reminded me of that team in terms of our culture, and the way guys got along in the room. These guys were together all the time away from the rink. They got along. They came to the rink every day and they had a good time. They were laughing, but they worked. It wasn't, and sometimes it's a fine balance between, being too loose or too uptight. Are we coming to the rink having fun, or is it turning into a country club? And finding that balance it's a fine line. Sometimes it can go either way. And, it was certainly a group that liked coming to the rink. They joked, they laughed, they had fun on the ice, but they put their heads down and they worked. And I think it created a culture that enabled us to have that success. And then obviously, we had some big wins over the Christmas period and some great games. And I think that just built confidence. And, we just caught on that train and we just never looked back. And, like I said, it was a fun season. It's the fun, but it's the funnest group, not taking away anything from other teams that I've coached before, but it's definitely the funnest group that I've coached to this day.
Stu, we were talking about this earlier as well. I mean, if you go into the dressing room and you've got the TVs and all the guys can see the prep, it seemed like the prep was amazing this year. Like you said, the guys are having fun, but I guess was it me or you, Stu, that said it about winning being a habit? I know Craig's milked that clip like crazy, but the Blaze had that habit this year. So I guess
said it.
Yeah. So looking at that video, on the Monday or on the Tuesday after a weekend, I guess that makes it a lot easier, and you can ride that wave.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I don't think our prep was any different this year than it has been in the past. And I think just our players, maybe we had a little bit more buy-in. We had a great leadership group, which is always key in having success at this level. And even the secondary leadership, I mean, key guys that weren't wearing letters were, a guy like Johnson coming in upbeat every day, full of energy and, keeping guys loose. And, guys like that, they're a dime a dozen and they're so key in a dressing room. And I just think we had such a good culture this season. And I think it puts us in a spot now that we got to work even harder to try and maintain that and try to ride on the back of the success that we had this season.
Yeah, and there's an amazing support network as well. I mean, the fans and the sponsors. I mean, particularly in this difficult time right now. Craig was talking to me and Stuart about it earlier on WhatsApp, and he was just saying how amazing they've been, because this is crazy. This is I hate to use the U word. It's unprecedented, and everyone loves this club.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want your club to be. I think from my first year coming in and just kind of feeling things out, and I want the guys that work at the rink. I want the guy that surfaces the ice. I want you guys. I want the fans. I want the guys that do the music, the off ice. I want them to all feel that they're part of the team, and that's the way it felt this year. And I think the fans felt that as well. And, team events, when they were around the players, in season past, I had noticed there was a little bit of hesitation to talk to players. And it goes both ways. It works both ways. And I think our group, obviously they did the business on the ice, but I think off the ice, they were more approachable. They did what they needed to do. And they really bought into the whole club club idea, and you know, obviously we're a smaller club here in I guess a minority sport in the UK, and you know, the fans have a lot more access to the players, and as maybe a bigger sport like football, and you got to have that relationship if a club like us is going to survive.
Stu, what were your thoughts on it, man? Because you do a lot more of the interviews with the players than I do. I kind of just have my own column in the magazine.
Yeah, certainly I do very little of the interviews now as well. I've got a great team of writers who put it all together and write the articles. But, you know, they were coming back and saying, you know, I spoke to this guy for 15, 20 minutes. We got so much information. I could probably string it over, you know, two pieces. What do you want to do? And that approachability of the players, they were willing to talk, they were willing to have conversations, it really came through this year.
Yeah. And was that something, Dan, you were saying like right at the beginning, like 4 years ago, you did a couple of those videos, I think it was in the casino in the Genting, and he said, you know, when I played here, I wanted it to be like, it was like a family. So I don't know how it is right now, you know, it's pretty raw, me just signing as a coach, but I want to get back to that stage. Do you feel like we're kind of there now?
I think at the moment, yeah, but I mean, just like any relationship, you gotta continue to work on it, right? I think it's very easy for us to say, okay, we've got to where we want to be, but we're, you know, it was a great season, but at the end of the day, we want to bring that every season. We want to be challenging for silverware, and you know, my first couple of years, I stayed away from saying, oh, we're a small club, we're this, we're that. I'm not an excuses guy, but, you know, when I signed that contract, I know what I'm getting into, and I know that we are a smaller club in this league, and but I'm buying into that. So, you know, I try my best not to interview, you know, if we lose a game to the Cardiff Devils, I'm not in there saying, wow, you know what, they're spending this amount more than us, they should be beating us. I think you just give your players an excuse to lose. And, you know, we proved this season that if you know, obviously recruiting's key, and obviously, like I said, there's so many elements that go into it. There has to be an element of luck. You know, we did our homework on guys like Eichstätt, Kern, and Polkamp, but, you know, transitioning from college straight to pro, you never know how that's going to go. Obviously, the more homework you do, the more, I guess, less of a risk that it's going to be, but you never know. And they all worked out great for us. And like I said, you have to have there's so many elements, and luck is one of them. But you know, I just think that it was such a great season, and, you know, a lot of things went right for us, and it's a lot harder for things to go right than there is for it to go wrong.
One of the things that you've done is that you've put a lot of things in place over the past 3 or 4 years that allows you to be in this position now. Where do you think the improvements that you've made and the club have made have been really key in getting to where you are now?
I think recognizing the type of, really truly buying into the type of people we want to bring in is the first thing. You know, when you recruit, you got an idea in your mind, and it's easy to get swayed from that. And, you know, maybe you come across a top end player and you've heard maybe the odd negative thing about him, but you get really drawn to what he can do on the ice. And for me, it was just, you know, I think maybe before the last season was, I don't want any more bad apples. I don't care how good you are on the ice. If you're not a good guy in the room, then I don't want you in our room. And I think we stuck to that. You know, it's very, like I said, it's very easy to get swayed away. And I think another big thing with support of the directors, support of some key sponsors, I don't have time to name them all, but they've been massive. The Booster Club been massive, has allowed us to build a better culture away from the rink. You know, we made some upgrades in the physio room. And again, 5-star facilities here, but we made some improvements. We stressed putting these guys in better housing, in better areas. Little things like that. I mean, even little things to the point where we put in LED lighting in the dressing room to create a better mood, things like that. And you know what? It seemed to work, and guys were happy. And there's a bunch of things that we've done, and sometimes it does take time. I think we've had good teams in the 4 years that I've been here. Obviously got crucified our first year for not making the playoffs. We missed out by a point. It's a season that took me a long time to get over because it was my first time as the head guy, and it didn't go as to plan. But I mean, I think we live in a world where it's very black and white these days. And again, I'm not an excuses guy, but obviously we're just casually talking here. And that season, we were in that conference with the 4 big clubs. And it wasn't just that we were in the conference with them. I mean, we played 32 of our 52 regular season games against those 4 teams. And that year, Cardiff, it was the first year Cardiff started their run here of league titles. They were phenomenal that year. Sheffield, I mean, they were Forney, and their back end, they had Ratchuk and Coyle and Bjorklund. They played so fast that year. They were so good. Belfast was phenomenal. Sorry, Forney had gone to Belfast that year. They were stacked. I think we were 5-19 that year against those 3 teams. And against the rest of the league, I think we were over 500 hockey, and we weren't good enough to compete week in, week out against that conference. And we still only missed out by a point. And I thought we had a much better team than our position maybe suggested. I think it was actually my second year that I was the most disappointed, because I actually thought we had much better quality. Valorant, Corshane, Nastiak was in net. We had a lot of good hockey players that year. We squeaked into playoffs there, and I felt that was the one season of the 4 seasons, surprisingly, that I felt we underachieved.
It's the recruitment game. I mean, we can only imagine. Stu, I mean, you've been doing this longer than me. The rumor mill is always crazy. Has there been, I mean, I'll put you on the spot, Dan, I hope you don't mind. Has there been one guy or like 1 year where you've had a guy on the hook and you thought, this guy's going to change our season, and lost him at the last minute? Because I imagine when you're trying to put the pieces in place, when you've got that whiteboard and you've got, okay, first line, I've got Larkinen and I've got Johnson, I've got Ferrara, whatever the season's going to be, having that one guy just turn and go, I've got a couple grand more a year or whatever it is in the DE, I'm going to go there. I mean, have you got one guy or 1 year where you had that piece where it kind of derailed you?
I don't know to that extent. I don't know if there was a guy that I thought, okay, we got this, maybe such as a verbal agreement or felt I had him on the hook. I remember one summer I think it was a summer before Blair Riley came to the league. We had a couple of chats about possibly coming here, and he ended up going to Belfast, and he was a guy that I was like, wow, if we could get him, I wasn't obviously couldn't predict how much a dominant player he would be in the league. But he was, a good American League hockey player. And then when he came in here and started scoring goals for Belfast, I remember being on the bench and being like, man, it would have been nice to get him. There's been a few other guys. I think Aslan for Cardiff, we were talked to several times in the summer before he went to Cardiff. And
because didn't he have a year off? Because he was playing in Denmark, right?
He had a year off, and but he obviously had a great career in Denmark, some very successful seasons there, won a couple championships, and I felt we were close to him. Whether we were or not, who knows? But those are a couple names that kind of come to mind right.
Stu, correct me if I'm wrong here, but do you remember back in the day we nearly had Doug Christensen? It's probably before Danny, but did I make that up? Because that was always the name that stuck in my head that the Blaze nearly had, or did I completely make that up?
Doug Christensen, I think, was one that was a heavily rumored. The other one that always remind me, it was a playoff finals weekend, and I think it was pretty much an open secret that Tomo had got Ryan Finnerty onto a contract. Oh, wow. It hadn't been announced, but pretty much everybody knew that it had happened. And it was so well known that the Blaze fans were cheering for Finnerty whilst he was playing. I think he was at the Steelers. And then he got applauded on the way off. And then I think maybe he was somewhere else. And then he played for Cardiff, perhaps. And then he instead of getting the Blaze, I think he got offered the head coach job at Sheffield or wherever it was he ended up.
Oh, okay.
And he took that instead. And I'm sure I remember Tomo saying a comment at some point, "You still owe me 2 weeks' notice, Finner."
That's awesome. Oh, man, that's so cool. It's weird when these players turn up, right? Because, Danny, you might have been in Fife, but Koenig turned up in Keepnet in Dundee. That's crazy. I mean, what was he, like 41, 42 at that point?
It kind of came out of nowhere. I don't even think we got to play against them. Again, too many knocks to the head. My memory is gone. But I vaguely remember him coming in, and we either didn't play against him, or I think he got hurt for a short time too. Although he wasn't there very long, he got hurt for a few games, and we might have played them while he was injured, but never played against him at that point. But heck of a goalie, what a career! And it was surprising to see him there. But did it end up being his last season? I think it was, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, TK's an amazing goalie, unbelievable goalie. One of the best goalies the Blaze have ever had. One of the best goalies the league's ever seen. I mean, that Vipers team where he led them to a cup, legendary, amazing goalie.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, he was. Well, I mean, he'd be my guy. If you guys asked me who my starting lineup was, like, he'd be my guy.
Well, you got to give us the rest of the line now.
Yeah, come on, then. Let's hear it. Who's the other five?
I shouldn't have went down that avenue. You know, tough. That's tough over the years. I forget, guys. I mean, AC/DC it's a no-brainer, right? Two got it on it. I'm not gonna pick Neil Martin because I don't want to give that to him. He's high enough on himself. I don't need to build him up even more. No, Neil's got to be there. He was. It's funny because people talk shutdown defensemen, and I know the name Sammy Nasruddin gets thrown around. Great D-man, and he wasn't a shutdown guy. And over the years you hear different other names like Jason Robertson and and stuff like that. But Marty for me was the best shutdown guy. I mean, I know he skated and looked dynamic offensively, but his strengths were his ability to close pucks. And I mean, he hounded pucks and he won puck battles and he won puck races, and that's what made him a special player for me. And he would definitely be back there. D-man, I'm probably gonna stick to that team. I mean, Weaves has got to be up there for the power. I mean, probably the best power play guy that I'd ever played with. Arguably there's a guy in Fort Wayne, Kelly Perot, that was very good as well. But Weaves was so good on the power play. If I could just bring him in and play him on the power play, I would. But
he was Telford. Is he still playing in Telford? Yeah.
They just won a double. Him and Tommy, and him and Tommy, they just won a double there. So, congrats to them. A great season for them. And, he's still playing at a high level. I think he missed a lot of time this year due to injuries, but obviously Ollie Lord keeps me updated when he comes and with us. And he said, I want to say it was the first leg of the cup, maybe. Weeds came back from an injury, played 3 or 4 shifts just on the power play, and he had 2 goals.
Wow.
So it was, but Weaves is up there. Would he be my guy? I don't know. Reed Simonton's got to be there, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
He was very good all around, so good all around. So maybe I'll go with Reed. Sorry, Weaves. I'll go with Reed. I'm going to stick to that 06, 07 team.
Yeah. He was a great player, Stu, Reed. He was one and done for him here. And did he go play after? Where did he go play after? I don't think he retired here. I know Nasruddin went to Denmark. I can't remember whether Reed did.
I think he retired, did he not?
Yeah,
Reed?
I think he retired. I think it was.
He did. I'm not going to pick any guys that I'm coaching. I'm just from my playing area. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can't make you do a coaching line because your WhatsApp will blow up from guys you're still in contact with.
It's like a parent of multiple kids. You can't have favorites. So
I'm just trying to think who I put on the right side. I'm trying to stick to an actual lineup here. Who'd I put on the right side there? I think probably for the career he had and the amount of big goals he scored for the club, maybe Tate.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you put Tate there. Add some British flavor to the lineup as well, right? So there. I'll stick to that 06, 07 team. There's my starting 6 right there.
That's amazing. That actually sounds like for me, that sounds like a really awesome place to end this. Stu, have you got anything else you want to throw down his way while we got him?
No, just congratulations for the season, and here's to hoping that in next season comes round and it all continues.
Yeah, obviously, this is getting through this virus is the priority right now, but yeah, no, we sure hope that the season can start on time. I know by that point people will be craving hockey, and I'd just like to take this time to thank everybody involved for this season. From the support of the directors to the fans, the match night volunteers, the sponsors, the booster club. I hope I don't forget any, especially the players. Keno, let's talk about Keno. Great help for me this year. He certainly made me better as a coach. What he brought, and he's been able to take some things off my plate, and not just take things off my plate. That's not just what Keno does. Obviously, Keno brings some elements to our club that are vitally important. He's been great for this club over the last 2 years, and like I said, he's allowed me to really focus on the coaching aspect and make me better at my job. So everyone involved, it was a great season. But you know what? We gotta put our heads down and work even harder now to replicate it and try to stay at that standard now, because if we lose a few games in September next year, the Boo Birds will be coming out right away, and it'll be Stuart, hashtag Stuart out again.
I feel like that's ending it on a low, but you know what, Danny, thank you so much for your time. Stu, it's great to chew your ear off again, man.
Definitely.
I feel like we cut this a couple of weeks too short.
There was a few more games that we could have squeezed in, that's for sure.
Yeah, that'd have been a lot of fun. Danny, thank you so much for being the guy for the pilot. Thank you for all you do for the club. Craig, I know you're lurking in the background. Thank you so much as well for organising this and putting it together. Blaze fans, everybody else watching, hopefully we'll throw some more content your way throughout the summer. Hopefully it doesn't last all that long. Hopefully we can sort this COVID-19 thing out. We can all go back to normal soon. But until we're told otherwise, stay safe, stay home, unless you got to go out to the doctors or to get food and stuff. And the more you do that, the sooner we're going to get to see some hockey, and hopefully we get to see the Coventry Blaze pick up where they left off. So on that note, from me, Danny and Stu, Craig, and everyone on the media team, good night. Thank you very much.